Good morning.
Morning.
3 black boxes and 1 empty screen. How is everyone?
All right, we'll open it up.
Morning.
Ah,
All good.
okay, they're all there. All there. Except for Paul. Paul's hiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Oh, there you go. It's so much nicer to see people's faces and to see black boxes. There we go. Okay. Are we recording? Yes, we are. All right, good. Good morning, everyone. So we are continuing Masechet Beitzah. Daf Yutet Amud Aleph. We're onto a new Mishnah, onto a new topic. We concluded our discussion, the previous sugya about Tvilat Kelim. We're now going to move on to Korbanot. You remember that we're going through the Mishnayot. All the common theme throughout is that we have different machlokot between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, primarily related to the topic of Yom Tov. We digressed a little bit. We spoke about some other things also, but now we're going back to Yom Tov. We're going back to a very interesting discussion, very interesting machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel relating to Korbanot, which is going to be relevant to general Hilchot Yom Tov nowadays as well. We'll get into it more as we go further. But let's see the Mishnah. Maybe just before the Mishnah, a little bit of background in terms of Korbanot. Right, there are different types. You know, there are different types of korbanot. You have an olah, you have shlamim. That's what our Mishnah is going to discuss. But even within that, there are different types of olot, different types of shlamim. So it's just important to remember. An olah, and really the clue to it is in the name of the korban. Olah means it goes up. The olah is entirely consumed on the mizbeach. It's completely burnt. Meaning, why is this going to be significant when we get to Hilchot Yom Tov? So no human being is going to benefit from it in the usual sense. No one's going to eat it. Right, it's only going on the mizbeach. It's kulo olah Lashem. That is the korban olah. Then there is the korban shlamim. Korban shlamim again is called that because it brings shalom. There are 3 different recipients, so to speak, of the korban. It's divided up into 3 parts. Some parts are burnt on the mizbeach. Some parts are given to the kohanim, right? And so we have our representative of the kohanim here. And some is eaten by the owners. So this korban is eaten as well. So this is. Yeah, it's maybe we're not used to thinking of the Beit HaMikdash as one big barbecue, but that's part of what took place, and therefore, so we can understand there would be a tzorech Yom Tov in bringing the korban shlamim because you're going to get to eat it, right? Whether it's you, whether it's the kohanim, etc. Now, both olah, when it comes to both olah and shlamim, so we have korban chova and we have a korban nedava. There's a korban that has to be brought. For example, the olah, every day we have the korban tamid. The korban tamid shel boker and tamid shel ben arbaim, that is a korban olah, and that is a chova. There is also an olat re'iyah, when on each of the shalosh regalim, everybody comes to the Beit HaMikdash, you're required to bring an olat re'iyah, right? And in addition, one can bring an olat nedava. If one wants to, one can volunteer a korban and bring an olah whenever that is. By shlamim as well. So when we come to Yom Tov, so we have the shamei chagiga, right? These are the 2 korbanot that every male is required to bring when they come to the Beit HaMikdash on the Shalosh Regalim. There's the olat re'iyah, which is an olah, as his name suggests, and there is shamei chagiga, right? Which is a shlamim. But that's the korban chagiga, which one has to eat. You remember by Pesach. So for example, the korban Pesach has to be eaten ala sova. We're told that that's one of the reasons why we eat the afikoman at the end of the meal, according to the understanding that the afikoman is a zecher to the korban pesach. Right? You eat it after you're already satisfied, not when you've completely stuffed your face and it's achila gasa, but when you're already satisfied, you're not hungry. So we have the korban shlamim first, and then we have the korban pesach. So that is the shamei chagiga. And there's also on Yom Tov what is called additional shamei simcha. The mitzvah of simchat Yom Tov, the discussion nowadays, right? The Rambam writes famously, and the Gemara says, "Ein simcha ela basar v'yayin." There is no simcha except for with meat, right? So what is that meat referring to? Does that refer to nowadays? Maybe not. There's a discussion, but it certainly refers to the basar of the korbanot. So the korbanot one is required to bring the shamei chagiga, etc. But if you have a large family, etc., and that's not going to be enough, so you can bring additional korbanot, additional shlamim. Those are called shamei simcha. Okay, and then of course a person can bring whenever they want. They can bring a nedava, can bring a shlamim. Okay, so that's the difference between korban olah and korban shlamim. Again, in both cases, we have obligatory korbanot, we have voluntary korbanot, but the main point is the olah is completely consumed on the mizbeach, and the shlamim are eaten as well. So let's see the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says...
Before we go further, I just want to ask about olah.
Yeah.
Of course, say it every morning in the korbanot, and in it, of course, in the morning, at night, okay. But then there's always an addition of solet, lemincha, blula b'shem, ktitahin. Does that get burned too, or is that separate and given to the kohen?
What are you talking about? Sachim, or you're talking about korban mincha? So there are different components as well.
Korban olah, b'poker, v'ba'erev, right? They have the same thing. And in addition, it's always something that's blula b'shemen and all that. That's part of the morning and evening
I think it's the Tamid you're thinking of. Oh? Oh, that's the Tamid?
Yeah. Which is
so there are different korbanot as well. There are different korban mincha as well. But the olah itself, what we're talking about right now, is the korban olah, which is the animal that is brought, and that is complete. That is burnt on the mizbeach. That's what that's what we're dealing with over here. So have a look at the Mishnah. We're on Daf Yutet Amud Aleph. We're about halfway down the page. Okay, the Mishnah begins. It says, Beit Shammai omrim mevi'in shlamim ve'en somchim aleihen aval lo olot. Okay, so there are two questions here in terms of the korbanot as to whether the korbanot can be brought and whether somchin aleim. Somchin aleim in this case does not mean that we rely on them, right? Which the word can mean as well, but whether we perform smicha. Smicha is when you bring a korban, generally speaking, so one would place both of one's hands on the head of the animal and lean on the animal with all one's strength. That is smicha. The question is whether that's considered using the animal, whether that can be done on Yom Tov as well. So Beit Shammai omrim v'in shlamim v'en somchin aleim. Beit Shammai says, this is all referring to Yom Tov. Beit Shammai says on Yom Tov you can bring a shlamim v'en somchin aleim, but we do not perform smicha on Yom Tov. Aval lo olot. However, the olot you cannot bring. Okay. And Beit Hillel say no, you can bring the shlamim, you can bring the olot, and you can do smicha as well. Now the question is, the Mishnah doesn't really tell us what is it referring to. Does it mean all shlamim? Does it mean all olot? As we've already seen, there's a difference. There are some which are obligatory. There are some which are connected to Yom Tov. There are some which are not connected to Yom Tov. So what exactly are we talking about? Again, seemingly the reason Beit Shammai is saying that anything that has a Yom Tov need is what you can bring. And that is why you can bring the shlamim, because you're going to eat them on Yom Tov. You can't do smicha, and you can't bring the olot, because no one's going to eat it. But Hillel says, no, you can bring all three. So let's see Rashi on the Mishnah. Rashi says, Mevin shlamim, b'Yom Tov lefi sheshvat adam. Right? That is why Beit Shammai allows us to bring shlamim on Yom Tov, because somebody's going to eat them. ואין סומכים עליהם שהסמיכה אסורה משום שבות. Okay, this is going to be a sort of Rabbanan of doing smicha on Yom Tov. Why? שבכל כוחו היה סומך ואלה משתמש בבעלי חיים. Right, this is using an animal which Rabbanan made forbidden. ותנן אין לו כבינה גבי בהמה. We're going to see later on, you can't ride on an animal, etc. אבל לא עולות, אין מבין עולות חוץ מתמידין ומוספין שאין קורבן ציבור. Okay, so already you see your limitation. When Beit Shammai says you can't bring olot, Rashi says that means additional olot. Does not mean, for example, you have the tamid, you have the korban musaf. These are korban tzibur v'zmanan kavua. Those are two things. It's a korban tzibur and it has a fixed time. Those can be brought. Aval olat yachid lo yavi, says Rashi. Beit Shammai is telling us that you cannot bring an individual olah. This would be an olat nadavar that you cannot bring because no one's going to eat it, right? Except for the mizbeach, so to speak, is going to eat it, right? Okay, that is the pasuk from Parshat Bo. That is referring to Ochel Nefesh, the malacha that you can do on Yom Tov. And it says, Yaseh lachem, to be done for you. Lachem, we're going to see later, and the Gemara is going to have a different drasha from it as well. But it's lachem v'lo gavoa, for you, not for gavoa, i.e. not for Hashem. In other words, you cannot bring the korban olah. That is what an olat nedava. That is what Beit Shammai means. So now says the Gemara. Okay, we're going to try and establish exactly which olot and which shlamim are we talking about here, and the machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. So says the Gemara, ma'ula machloket b'shamei chagiga lismoch v'olat raya likarev. Okay, says Ula, the machloket between them is relating to shamei chagiga. Okay, so we're referring to the korbanot which are related to Yom Tov, the shamei chagiga that everybody has to bring. That is the machloket about lismoch. In other words, Beit Hillel says you can do the smicha on the shamei chagiga. Beit Shammai says you can't, but they both agree you can bring the korban. And olat riyah likarev, whether you can bring the korban olat riyah, we have to remember the korbanot are meant to be brought on the day of Yom Tov, but they do have tashlumin for the rest of Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed, or for the week afterwards, if one wasn't able to bring it then. So according to Beit Shammai, the olat riyah you cannot bring on Yom Tov itself. You're going to have to bring it afterwards. Why? The Beit Shammai savri v'chagotem oto chag l'Hashem chagiga in olat riyah lo. Beit Shammai learns it from the pasuk. The pasuk says chag, right? The word chag, chagotem oto chag l'Hashem. This is why, by the way, whenever we say chag, so now we use colloquially, we use the term chag as relating to a festival. But the word chag is related to the word chagiga, to the korban chagiga. That's why, strictly speaking, it's not actually correct to wish somebody chag sameach when it's not one of the shalosh regalim, because there is no chagiga. So on Purim and on Chanukah and Yom Ha'atzmaut, everybody goes around saying chag sameach. And it's strictly speaking, that is not correct. So some people are more careful about that. Some people are not as bothered. But that's why. If somebody doesn't wish you chag sameach on Chanukah, you know why. Okay. So the pasuk talks about that you have to bring the chag, so you can bring the chagiga, but you can't bring the olat riyah. So Beit Shammai learns from the word chag. Now Beit Hillel savri l'Hashem, so chag l'Hashem, called the l'Hashem. You can bring whatever you need to bring for Hashem. You can bring the chagiga, you can bring the olat, the whole thing. Aval nedarim unedavot divrei hakohen krevin b'yom tov. Okay, but whether it's an olah or a shlamim. Okay, if it's of nedarim and nedavot, which are voluntary offerings, the difference between a neder and a nedavah, by the way, is whether you make a vow on yourself or you make a vow on the animal. If a neder is, I say, I am going to bring a korban, so that is a neder. And a nedavah would be you designate a specific animal and you say, I'm going to bring this animal as a korban, right? And the difference between the two would be if that animal goes missing or it gets a mum or something else, right? Whether you have to replace it and how you would do that. But okay, so that is Ula. So Ula understands machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel only refers to the korbanot chova, the korbanot that one has to bring on Yom Tov. But when it comes to nedarim and nedavot, everybody agrees that you cannot bring those on. Yom Tov. So let's see Rashi. Rashi on the Gemara. He says machloket b'shamei chagiga lismoch v'olat riyah likarev. Matnitin demodu tavayu b'shlamim lahavi v'lo iflug bo ela b'smichatan. So our Mishnah where Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel agree regarding shlamim. Both agree that there's no machloket that you can bring shlamim. The only machloket is whether you can perform smicha. That is b'shamei chagiga. Right, it's referring to the chagiga, to the shlamim that you have to bring on Yom Tov. Modu Beit Shammai bavatan mipnei shein chovat hayom kedamin b'chagiga. Beit Shammai agree that you can bring them. That's the obligation of that day. Mi v'chagotem oto chag. Right from the pasuk we've just seen. V'olah shenechlaku af bavatan. However, when it comes to an olah where we have a machloket even about bringing it in the first place, so that is b'olat riyah nechlaku. Right, that is talking about the olat riyah. That's also related to Yom Tov. Vahi huda kashari Beit Hillel mipnei she'i shel Yom Tov. But Hillel allowed it because it's still related to Yom Tov. Denaf kalan mi v'lo yira'u panai rekam. From the pasuk it says lo yira'u panai rekam. You won't see my face, so to speak, empty-handed. What does it mean? It means you have to bring the olat re'iyah. So Beit Hillel say that's related to Yom Tov. Beit Shammai say nonetheless, it's not. You're not going to eat it. It's not actually a Yom Tov need, and they learn from the pasuk the way that they learn. Okay, but we said Nedarim and Nedavot. Everybody agrees at this stage that those cannot be brought. Says Rashi about Nedarim and Nedavot. Ho'il ve'en zmanan hayom klal divrei hakol ein krevim. Right, since today is not their day, they don't have a fixed time. They don't have any fixed time. When, by the way, we'll see it later. When does a person have to bring? If a person makes a neder, they're going to bring a korban to the Beit HaMikdash, or they make a nedava. Let's say the person, remember, not everybody lives in Yerushalayim like we do, right? Not everybody is so close to the Beit HaMikdash. When does the person come to the Beit HaMikdash? Once on the Shalosh Regalim. So a person lives in Beersheva, a person lives in the Golan, right? A person lives in Tveria. Right, and in those days, it's not so easy to get to the Beit HaMikdash. Remember, you don't have planes, you don't have cars, you don't have. So a person decides one day something important has happened in their life, whatever it is, they say, I'm going to bring a korban, I'm going to bring an olah, I'm going to bring a shlamim, whatever it is, I want to bring a nedava to the Beit HaMikdash. Okay, when are you going to go to the Beit HaMikdash? You're going to go on Yom Tov. Well, you're going to get there a few days before, you stay there for a few days after, etc. But let's say they make the neder now in Cheshvan. Okay, when do they have to bring their korban? So we have a mitzvah, we have what's called Bal Ta'acher, which means you cannot delay. I mean, you make an oath to the Beit HaMikdash, you have to bring it within a certain amount of time. What's that amount of time? It's not a number of weeks or a number of days, because again, it's difficult to get there. Not everybody's going to come to the Beit HaMikdash, except for on festivals. So therefore, the parameters for Bal Ta'acher depends on how many Chagim pass. Okay, we'll see, our Gemara will discuss it in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah as well. There's a lengthy discussion of what are the parameters of Bal Ta'acher. We have different opinions. There are those who say it's after one Chag has passed, those after two Chagim have passed, those after three Chagim have passed, those who say depending on the order. That's one of the interpretations. By the way, the first Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says that there are 4 New Years to the year, right? And Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah, if you remember, for kings, and it's also the Rosh Hashanah for Chagim. What does it mean that Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah for Chagim, or what's the right? The Gemara says New Year for kings. I understand there's an afkamina in terms of when you're dating documents. You need to know the 3rd reign of the king or whatever it is. When do you start counting the year? You start counting the year from Nisan. But what does it mean it's a New Year for Regalim? So the Gemara explains that the nafkamina for the New Year for Regalim would be for the mitzvah of Bal Ta'acher, at least according to one opinion, that if we count 3 Regalim for Bal Ta'acher, but that starts in Nisan, starts from Pesach. Okay, so there could be situations where because there are 4 regalim or 5 regalim to bring in. Anyway, that is but the point is, so the neder and the nedavat doesn't have any fixed time. You can bring it whenever you want, so long as you don't wait too long, so long as you don't delay, but you can bring it on any day. Therefore, it's not tied to the Chag, right? Rashi again, or ilva ends manan hayom kalal. Today's not their day at all. It's got nothing to do with it. Divrei kohen krevin. Therefore, everybody agrees you can't bring them. Even shlamim, right, which you could eat, even those you aren't allowed to bring because it's unnecessary, it's not their time. So therefore, kol sheken olot, or the more so the olot, you can bring them later on. So now, so you're going to ask me a question. You're going to say, if everybody says you can't bring the Nedarim and Nedavot on Yom Tov because you could bring them any other time, so hang on a second, Korban Olat Re'iyah and Shamei Chagiga, you can bring later. You can bring them the whole week. You can bring the week of Chol HaMoed, or if we were talking about Shavuot, you have Tashlumin Kol Shiva, you have a whole week that you could bring them afterwards. So you could say, well, now's not the time when you have to bring them as well. Right, that's the implicit question. Nonetheless, we permit those to be brought on the first day of Yom Tov. Why? Maybe an honest will happen. Maybe you'll have an extenuating circumstance. It's the Chag, you're there with the whole family. It's very, very busy. You're going to go. I don't know what's going to happen, and you might not have time, and then you might not bring them. You go in your tiyul, your Chol HaMoed tiyul, and it will get late, and you won't have time. Okay, that was a joke. Utnan ava regel v'lo chag eino chayav b'achrayuto v'achim mefresh b'braita lekaman. In other words, since you may not have the opportunity, something might happen, you may not have the opportunity to bring it later, because that's connected to Yom Tov, you can bring it then. But the Korban Neder and the Korban Nedava, which is just, you can bring any time, it's got nothing to do with Chag, that we won't allow. Okay, that is Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, everybody agrees on that point. That is how Ula understands their machloket. Let's go back into the Gemara, right, 3 lines down from the Gemara. So that was Ula's interpretation. So too, Rav Ada Bar Hava learns the same way. He says, Nadarim and Nadavot en krevin b'Yom Tov. He says, we cannot bring Nadarim and Nadavot on Yom Tov. So now, says the Gemara Meitivei, we have a challenge. We're going to challenge from the Braita as follows. Meitivei, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Remember, until now we've been dealing with the opinion of Ula. Now here's the explanation, the Braita of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. He says, Lo nechlaku Beit Shammai Beit Hillel al Ola she'ena shel Yom Tov, she'ena kreva b'Yom Tov. Ve'al shlamim she'en shel Yom Tov, she'krevin b'Yom Tov. Al ma nechlaku al Ola she shel Yom Tov, ve'al shlamim she'enam shel Yom Tov. She'Beit Shammai omrim lo yavi, u'Beit Hillel omrim yavi. Okay, so let's see, let's unpack this. So what's Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar saying? He's saying Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel agree, right? Lo nechlaku Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel al Ola she'ena shel Yom Tov. An Ola that is not of Yom Tov, right? An Ola Nedava, everybody agrees, eina kreva b'Yom Tov. Okay, so far so good. It's no different to anything we've said. Ve'al shlamim she'en shel Yom Tov she'krevin b'Yom Tov. Okay, and on shlamim, which are connected to Yom Tov, the Shamei Chagiga, right, that you can bring those, right? We saw machloket about the smicha, but no machloket about the akrava. Fine. Al ma nechlaku. So what is their machloket? Al ola she shel Yom Tov, ve'al shlamim she'einan shel Yom Tov. Regarding an ola, the ola of Yom Tov, right, the ola treya that we saw, that Beit Shammai are going to say you can't bring, and Beit Hillel are going to say you can bring, and al shlamim she'einan shel Yom Tov, and shlamim that are not of Yom Tov. What are shlamim that are not of Yom Tov? That is nedarim and nedavot. So regarding these two cases, he says Beit Shammai omrim lo yavi, Beit Hillel omrim yavi. Beit Shammai says you can't bring, Beit Hillel says you can bring them. Okay, we see the machloket. We see there is now a machloket about the machloket, right? And it revolves around the question: if we have, call it nedarim and nedavot, call it shlamim she'enam shel Yom Tov, are you allowed to bring korban shlamim that is not connected to Yom Tov, that is a stam neder on Yom Tov? So according to Ula, the answer is no. You cannot bring them, whether you're Beit Hillel or you're Beit Shammai. According to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, this is part of the machloket, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, that Beit Shammai says no, but Beit Hillel says you can. Okay, so we have a contradiction here in our Gemara. The question is, in nedarim and nedavot, which are not connected to Yom Tov, shlamim, which is not connected to Yom Tov, are you allowed to bring it on Yom Tov? According to Beit Hillel. According to Beit Shammai, for sure you can't. Okay, but are you allowed to bring it on Yom Tov according to Beit Hillel? So according to Ula, the answer is no. According to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the answer is yes. So here we have that is our contradiction. Okay, that's our challenge. So Taritz v'ema. So here is attempt number 1 to give a teretz. Teretz v'ema hachi amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. In other words, we're going to amend the wording of the Braita, meaning there was a mistake in the Braita. Well, it should really read as follows. Teretz v'ema hachi amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Lo nechlaku Beit Shammai u'Beit Hillel al ola u'shlamim she'enan shel Yom Tov she'en krevin b'Yom Tov ve'al shlamim she'en shel Yom Tov she'krevin b'Yom Tov. Ama nechlaku al ola she shel Yom Tov she'Beit Shammai omrim lo yavi u'Beit Hillel omrim yavi. In other words, we've changed the Braita, and what we've done is we've taken from the end, we've taken one line out. In other words, let's read it again. Lo nechlaku Beit Shammai u'Beit Hillel al ola u'shlamim she'enan shel Yom Tov. We've added in there the word shlamim. Originally we said that there was no machloket between them regarding an olah that is not of Yom Tov, that it can't be brought. Now we're saying there is no machloket between them regarding an olah or a shlamim, meaning neder and davot. Any korban that's not connected to Yom Tov that you can't bring. And krevim Yom Tov. Shlamim shem Yom Tov shem krevim b'Yom Tov, and shlamim of Yom Tov you can bring on Yom Tov. Right? Ama nechleku al olah sheishal Yom Tov. So whereas previously in the Braita on that line we had olah sheishal Yom Tov and shlamim she'enam shel Yom Tov, now we just have olah shel Yom Tov. That's the machloka between them regarding the olah treya. She'Beit Shammai omrim lo yavi u'Beit Hillel omrim yavi. Okay, so we've now amended the Braita And the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Lazar is exactly the same as our Mishnah, exactly the way that Ula explained our Mishnah. And therefore, again, there's no question that Nedarim and Nedavot cannot be brought. However, that's one teretz. Second teretz says the Gemara. We're now 3 lines from the bottom of the page. Rav Yosef Amar Tanai Shakalt Me'alma. Rav Yosef says, wait a minute. Why do you have to change the Braita? You have removed the Tana from the world, so to speak, right? Why do you have to change the Braita? Who says that all the Tanaim agree on this point? We have Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, but then we have there's an opinion in the Tanaim that learns the Mishnah one way, and there's an opinion in the Mishnah in the Tanaim that learns the Mishnah another way. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is the opinion in the Tanaim who holds that yes, you could bring a Korban Nedava on Yom Tov according to Beit Hillel. Who's the other opinion in the Tanaim? So now we have to find the other opinion in the Tanaim. So he says, Tanai, this is a Machloket Tanaim, the Tanya, Shlamim Aba'im Mechamat Yom Tov, Beyom Tov, Beit Shammai Amrim Somech Alein Me'erev Yom Tov B'Shochtan, Beyom Tov, Ubeit Hillel Amrim Somech Alein Beyom Tov, V'Shochtan Beyom Tov. So Shlamim, which are, right, Shamei, Chagiga, which are part of the mitzvah of Yom Tov. Beit Shammai says you have to do the smicha beforehand, but Beit Hillel says, no, it's fine on Yom Tov. Okay. Aval, over the page, and I would bet, Nedarim and Nedavot, Divrei HaKol, and Krevim Beyom Tov. Okay, however, when it comes to Nedarim and Nedavot, everybody agrees those cannot be brought on Yom Tov. So what we see here, Rashi just points out, Ula, who is an Amora, but was following this Tana. So not relative to the fact that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says differently, that's fine. We have now a machloket Tanaim. So where does this leave us? We have a machloket in our Mishnah between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel regarding Korban Olah and regarding Korban Shlamim. The Mishnah doesn't tell us which Korban Olah and which Korban Shlamim. Okay, so again, according to the Mishnah, according to everybody, you can bring a Korban Shlamim on Yom Tov. Okay, that has to be, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel agree. Clearly, according to all opinions, what they agree on is we're talking about the Shamei Chagiga, we're talking about the Korban Shlamim of Yom Tov, right? They agree that can be brought. However, they disagree. They disagree about the smicha, where Beit Hillel says you can do the smicha on Yom Tov. Beit Shammai says you have to do the smicha before Yom Tov. They also disagree regarding an olah, a korban olah, whether that can be brought on Yom Tov at all. So turns out everybody agrees that they're talking about the olah teriyah, the korban olah, which is related to Yom Tov. That Beit Shammai says can't be brought even on Yom Tov, and Beit Hillel says it can be brought on Yom Tov. Regarding a korban olat nedava, so everybody would agree that cannot be brought on Yom Tov. Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, according to everybody. Regarding shalmei nedava, right, a korban shlamim, which is a neder or a nedava, so this is where it gets sticky. According to one opinion, we say our Mishnah was not talking about, and this is what Ula says, right? Our Mishnah was not talking about that at all, and even Beit Hillel would say you cannot bring korban nedava on Yom Tov. The other opinions, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says no, our Mishnah, that's not true. Even when Beit Hillel says you can bring a korban shlamim, you can bring any korban shlamim, even a neder and dava that you could bring on Yom Tov. So it turns out that is a machloket Tanaim as to what exactly what the opinion would be of Beit Hillel, whether you can bring a korban and dava on Yom Tov or not. Right? Ula follows the Tana who says that you cannot, and Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is the Tana who says that you can. The Gemara will then say that there are other Tanaim who agree as well, and we'll continue this machloket, continue the discussion tomorrow. Okay. Ad Khan, have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
You
Have a
too,
great day.
be well.
Thank you.
It's